Hmm. Okay, I look okay. Not great. Fuck. Oops. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Hope everyone had a very nice holiday. Let's see. Excuse me. We're missing. Who are we missing? AJ. I'll give her a minute. Oh, excuse me. Okay. Hopefully AJ will join us, but we can catch her up if and when. So I wanted to kind of just like ease you guys into stuff a little bit this week. By the end of the week, we will definitely like be back up to speed. But I know these first couple of days coming back from a holiday are always tough. So we have a pretty short reading assignment, and then you have some questions about it. I'm going to go ahead actually and share my screen with you. We've done the like exploring the text before. This one is not actually in the book, so there's not an exploring the text, but there are some questions that go along with it. So this is on your new module, and it's called The Ugly Truth About Beauty. It's a comedic piece, so it'll be fun to read. We'll read it together. It's pretty good. But after you read it, you're going to answer these questions. There's only 5, and I bet you guys could probably predict what some of the questions would be about this. First of all, it's written by Dave Barry, who is a comic writer. Who do you think the intended audience is? What's the tone of the writer, and is that tone effective for the piece? What kinds of comparisons does Barry make about men and women in regard to how they see themselves and how they see each other? Explain why you think the beauty industry is so successful and use examples from the story. It's not really a story, but whatever. And what techniques or strategies do you notice Barry using in order to appeal to his audience or convince them of his viewpoint? So to answer those questions, the text is right there in a PDF, but I'm just going to actually pull it up. Let me just double check for a second, make sure. No, she's not joined us. It's short. It's only a page, 2 columns. So anybody want to read? Okay, that's what I thought. The Ugly Truth About Beauty. If you're a man, at some point, a woman will ask you how she looks. How do I look? She'll ask. You must be careful how you answer this question. The best technique is to form an honest yet sensitive opinion, then collapse on the floor with some kind of fatal seizure. Trust me, this is the easiest way out because you will never come up with the right answer. The problem is that women generally do not think of their looks in the same way that men do. Most men form an opinion on how they look in the 7th grade, and they stick to it for the rest of their lives. Some men form the opinion that they're irresistible stud muffins, and they do not change this opinion, even when their faces sag and their noses bloat to the size of eggplants, and their eyebrows grow together to form what appears to be a giant forehead-dwelling tropical caterpillar. Most men, I believe, think of themselves as average looking. Men will think this even if their faces cause heart failure in cattle at a range of 300 yards. Being average does not bother them. Average is fine for men. This is why men never ask anybody how they look. Their primary form of beauty care is to shave themselves, which is essentially the same form of beauty care that they give to their lawns. If at the end of his 4-minute daily beauty regimen, a man has managed to wipe most of the shaving cream out of his hair and is not bleeding too badly, he feels that he's done all he can. So he stops thinking about his appearance and devotes his mind to more critical issues, such as the Super Bowl. Women do not look at themselves this way. If I had to express in 3 words what most women think about their appearance, those words would be not good enough. No matter how attractive a woman may appear to others, when she looks at herself in the mirror, she thinks, woof. She thinks that at any moment, a municipal animal control officer is going to throw a net over her and haul her off to the shelter. Why do women have such low self-esteem? There are many complex psychological and societal reasons, by which I mean Barbie. Girls grow up playing with a doll proportioned such that if it were human, it would be 7 feet tall and weigh 81 pounds, of which 53 pounds would be bosoms. This is a difficult appearance standard to live up to, especially when you contrast it with the standards set for little boys by their by their action figures. Most of the action figures that my son played with when he was little were hideous looking. For example, he was fond of an action figure, part of the He-Man series, called Buzz-Off, who was part human, part flying insect. Buzz-Off was not a looker, but he was extremely self-confident. You could not imagine Buzz-Off saying to the other action figures, "Do you think these wings make my hips look big?" But women grow up thinking they need to look like Barbie, which for most women is impossible, although there is a multi-billion-dollar beauty industry devoted to convincing women that they must try. I once saw an Oprah show wherein supermodel Cindy Crawford, who was a big-time supermodel in the 90s, dispensed makeup tips to the studio audience. Cindy had all these middle-aged women apply beauty products to their faces. She stressed how important it was to apply them in a certain way using the tips of their fingers. All the women dutifully did this, even though it was obvious to any sane observer that no matter how carefully they applied these products, they would never look remotely like Cindy Crawford, who is some kind of genetic mutation. I'm not saying that men are superior. I'm just saying that you're not going to get a group of middle-aged men to sit in a room and apply cosmetics to themselves under the instruction of Brad Pitt in hopes of looking more like him. Men would realize that this task was pointless and demeaning. They would find some way to bolster their self-esteem that did not require looking like Brad Pitt. They would say to Brad, "Oh yeah, well, what do you know about lawn care, pretty boy?" Of course, many women will argue that the reason they become obsessed with trying to look like Cindy Crawford is that men, being as shallow as a drop of spit, want women to look that way. To which I have two responses. One, hey, just because we're idiots does not mean you have to be. And two, men don't even notice 97% of the beauty efforts you make anyway. Take fingernails. The average woman spends 5,000 hours per year worrying about her fingernails. I have never once in more than 40 years of listening to men talk about women heard a man say, "She has a nice set of fingernails." Many men would not notice if a woman had upward of 4 hands. Anyway, to get back to my original point, if you're a man and a woman asks you how she looks, you're in big trouble. Obviously, you can't say she looks bad, but you also can't say that she looks great because she'll think you're lying because she has spent countless hours with the help of the multi-billion-dollar beauty industry obsessing about the differences between herself and Cindy Crawford. Also, she suspects that you're not qualified to judge anybody's appearance. This is because you have shaving cream in your hair. Okay, so the first thing to remember, like as you're answering these questions, is that you don't have to agree with this. When we read this last year, I feel like we spent most of the class just talking about it because people were like, well, I don't really agree with this part. I don't really agree with that he says. And that's fine if you don't. I'm not sure that he even necessarily believes everything that he's saying, but you know, he has this main idea that he's trying to get across, and he does it in a pretty funny way. So keep that in mind. It's kind of like when you are, like when you're writing an argument, you don't necessarily have to agree with what you're saying. Like in a debate, especially, you'd be on one side and you might not necessarily agree, but you need to look at it for its merits and decide like, what are the effective pieces to this puzzle. So that's kind of what you're doing. Or you might completely agree with him, in which case this is a lot easier. But those are the questions that you're answering. Who's the intended audience? What's the tone? Is the tone effective? What kinds of comparisons does Barry make about men and women in regards to how they see each other? Why is the beauty industry so successful? And what techniques or strategies do you notice him using in order to appeal to his audience or convince them of his viewpoint? And you know, you might throw in there, if you disagree with him, you might throw in there that like you don't think that he was very convincing, but that's up to you. The only other thing I wanted to say was that I basically put my laptop away for 2 weeks and tried not to touch it at all. So your grades for things that you were turning in at the end are coming, but I needed a break just as much as you guys did, if not more. So we will get those things graded definitely before the end of the week. I have, I think, essays in every class to grade, so that's a lot of fun. But that's it. I'm going to stay on the call for the rest of the time. If you guys want to leave and work independently, you can do that as well, or you can stay and ask questions. But I will, if you leave, I'll see you tomorrow.